That's what you do. You buy these players that cost money and make a difference in it. But we never do that.
Never complains, gets up, gets on, with a smile on his face.
They just want you to sit in your chair and go, hip hip hooray, for the Western press and the Western narrative. Regurgitating the same old, same old, same old, every single day, without the truth. If you haven't seen it before, please watch the first season, the first 2 episodes, the second season. Something like that. Stallone.
We are on the site of the castle.
And it was the first time the Beatles had really stopped being semi-professional almost.
Look at that.
Absolutely fascinating. I'm awfully sorry, everyone. I know it was late just coming on there. I've been looking everywhere for me reading glasses. Can't find them. Yes, me reading glasses. Glasses that I can actually read words with. Not words with, but words with. Can't find them. Just been looking now again. I'm gonna just give me 1 minute. I'll go and get another pair of glasses that I can actually read with. Bear with me. Back again. For fuck's sake. Sorry about this. Sorry about this. I just don't know where to put them down. My reading glasses. I haven't a clue. Ah, better. Read. My eyes are going worse, of course. I've got these fucking things here. Anyway, let's see what you've been saying. Simon. Good evening, Franco Anthony, ladies and gentlemen in the chat tonight. You asked me to remind you to talk about this week about the Moors Dialectics takeover. I will do. That'll be tomorrow night. Football show. This is history. But thank you, Simon. And if you're on tomorrow, comment. Just make sure that I'm going to talk about that. Okay. And he carries on by saying, I think it's a good idea you suggested last week to get somewhere like Jan, George Shefton, even Tommy Smith, if Tommy's dead, or Phil Tomo to come on and do a podcast. Help your algorithm. I think I'll more if I got Tommy Smith. I love the paranormal people a lot better. Iran is playing a dangerous game tonight. The regime is trying to calculate a response to show strength, but in reality, it's a feeble response. Qatar has already stated it reserves the right to respond. We'll be talking about that tomorrow night. Yeah, tomorrow night. I'm not talking football tomorrow. I'm talking special issues, not social issues, current issues. The irony is that both the US and Iran quote the UN Charter but attacks on Sunday AM and tonight breaking law under Chapter 7 of the Charter and Article 51. Playing fire with them helps no one. Thing is, the other fellow, Trump, he's put himself right in. He's in a corner. He's not going to help America at all. But worst and foremost, he's not going to help Europe either. It's in a mess. And I'll be talking about that tomorrow. You don't mind. He's boxed himself in a corner. Excuse me. Hi, Frank and Anthony and Jason and everyone. Like and subscribe, says Christopher. Thank you, Christopher. And cara mia Toscana. Buonasera, Franco. Good evening to you all. Hope you're all in fine. Yes. Except for we're on the precipice of this. I wish I could show you behind me. Frank. I watched a film called The Day After, and it was made in 1983 with Jason Robards, actually. And it's frightening about a nuclear attack. And if you watch it, those bombs that go off, don't forget that they're air explosions, they don't hit the ground. They explode in the air and it sends down. It's just a raw of everything. And then as it hits the ground, it goes out. That's the way it is. Then they explode. Then the fallout. You don't survive. So watch it. The Day After. You get it on YouTube. I'm sorry about this. This is ridiculous. This. I've been out all day with my daughter, going everywhere, travelling everywhere. And I was all right. As soon as I come in here, this kicks off. It's not half getting me down. It really does. The bear. Good evening, Frank. Hope you're well tonight. It depends. It depends, the bear, honestly. Depends, mate. Good evening, Frank. Hope you're all well. Good evening, chat. Also, all caps better, Frank. Yes, thank you so much, George. I remember the Scottish Bird, not Scottish Bird, I'm sorry, the Anfield Raw, or was it Redbird? They were putting us in big caps, capital caps, which helped me a great deal. And Simon says, sorry, I didn't realise that Tommy Smith was there. Yeah, Just read up, he died, yeah. Rest in peace, Tommy. Seaside. Lovely Lynn. Evening, Frank. Evening, Lynn. My little mate. My little mate who's free from pain. Yes. I'm talking about ladies tonight as well. Not just ladies, you know, you talk about it in a way. Because I'm going to bring on this special friend of mine. And do you know when you say about friends and special friends, and this fella is, he's such a sweetheart, great man, lovely man, a man that you could call a friend, if you know what I mean. I know that sounds corny, but it's not. I've got friends, but you have special friends. The unfortunate thing, I was thinking about a special friend of mine. Well, two actually, and both of them are passed on. And he's a very special friend, this fella. Great artist, and he's a lovely, lovely man. And there he is. And he loves history, by the way. He loves history, but especially about the ladies that we're going to talk about. He knows, honestly, he knows more than me, to be honest. And there he is, the Mr. Anthony Brown, the wonderful international artist from Liverpool, Scouser. There he is.
Follow that. You are way too kind, and no one knows as much, certainly not more than you, Frank. No.
But you think the liver bears upon my chest? The liver bears upon my chest.
I think that's just it's etched in your heart. So
it
yeah,
is.
That's great. That's great.
It is. It's so right. You know, it's incredible, and you know that we've got association with the world. We have links everywhere. Everywhere. We've got Liverpool has more links and connections with America, for example,
yeah,
than anywhere else.
Yeah.
Anywhere else. Liverpool. And it's incredible to think the connections, if you know what I mean.
It is. It's like we've always said though. And my idea is that Liverpool's greatest export throughout history has been its people.
Yes.
Obviously, the magnitude of some of the things that happened in our lifetime through music and through sport, then that just amplifies. You know, it was wonderful. Lainey and I took a trip to New York quite a while ago now, but it was wonderful to be in a city that you had never been before, didn't know it. It feels like Liverpool. And there were Liverpool bars everywhere. You know, more so.
Well, what did John Lennon say, Anthony? John Lennon said it's like home from home.
Yeah.
New York.
Yeah. That's what it felt like, Frank. Yeah.
Do you ever remember a playwright by the name of Alan Owen?
Yes.
No, yeah. It was like A-L-U-N, you know, it's a proper Welsh name.
Yeah.
And he was in New York. You know, he's here, like, obviously. And he said, good God, he said, New York is Liverpool. That's what he said. It's just like Liverpool, just like what Lennon said.
Yeah.
And the people of the sea. It's incredible.
He's the guy that wrote Hard Day's Night screenplay, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Alan Owen.
Yeah.
Do you know, you're talking about Hard Day's Night, and who was in that? I thought was a great actor, and he was so underrated. And even Sean Connery said, and even what's his name? It will come to me. It will come to me. Well, anyway, this other fella, Donald Pleasant, right?
Yeah.
Sean Connery, Donald Pleasant, acted with this fella, Liverpool fella. And he said, both of them said, on separate occasions, not at the same time. And Sean Connery said, I must talk. He was giving an interview, and they were talking about his films, and one of the films they were talking about was The Longest Day.
Yeah.
And he said there was a great actor in this. He said, and he was my Oppo in it. He was my Oppo, and he was one of the most underrated actors you could ever wish to work with. And his name was Norman Rossington. That's what he said to the interviewer, right? The same way Donald Pleasance, because Donald Pleasance was in a thing called Deathline. So the other Deathline, Donald Pleasance played this chief, police, and Norman Rossington played his sidekick. And he said, what a talented actor. There on time, knew every line, everything, no cuts, no none of this. Oh, forgot me that, none of that. Straightforward, bang, gone. He said, and it was done within a jiff. He said, fantastic actor.
Yeah.
And that was Norman Rossington.
Fantastic actor.
A hard day's night.
Yeah.
Loved him.
Brilliant.
Just shows you, doesn't it? I'll just say these. Simon says, sorry, I didn't realise. It's all right. Yeah, don't worry. Don't worry, honestly, Simon. Good evening, Anthony. Hope you're having a great evening, says George.
I am. I'm looking forward to a great evening in ideal company. Yeah.
And Christopher says, Frank, do you wear reading glasses to look at a monitor? Because I have bifocals and look at the monitor with the normal distant lens, not the reading lens. Christopher, listen to this.
Yeah.
I bought a pair of bifocals. I'm going back a few years ago.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was upstairs. Should have seen me coming down the stairs. My eyes couldn't focus.
Do you know what? I tried to wear bifocals, and if you look the wrong way, it immediately makes you feel seasick, or made me feel seasick. So I was spending all day leaning on door frames and leaning on. I can't.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
From the bin. But we're all together now. We'll guide each other.
But they're the bifocals, so I just wear, distant ones and reading ones, to be honest. And these ones, I can just about read, and also see without any squinting or anything.
Yeah.
But thank you.
They're like you.
Bella Natalia. Ciao Franco and Anthony, my first time on your channel. I was introduced by Simon, my good friend.
Oh,
Isn't that lovely? Hello, Bella. Ciao, Bella. Ciao, Bella. I was talking to an Italian today. He came from Ancona. And he said, I was, born in Ancona. And he said, and he was trying to give me the geography of. I said, I know where it is. I've been there. I went, yeah. I said, yeah. He said, I went to live in Milan. He said, with my parents. My parents brought me up as it.
Oh.
So I said to him, well, who's your support? And he said, Inter. I went, so we shook his hand. And we were chatting then, about football, obviously, and about Italy. And he said, have you got a connection with Italy? I said, yeah. My mother and my grandparents and my great-grandparents and my uncles and aunties and, you know,
Yeah.
we were just chatting, and he works over there, speaks perfect English, and trying to have a conversation with her in Italian. And
Fantastic.
Francine said to me, what are you like, Dad? I said, what?
Oh,
But lovely fella. Because I was out with Francine buying her a bloody car again. Had more cars than a second-hand car showroom, to be honest. I was out Francine in the last couple of years.
oh,
There. Good evening, Anthony.
oh. Good evening, Scottish Bear. It's so nice to hear you and see you.
And the lovely Liv. Evening, Anthony.
Good evening, Lynn. Hope you're well.
And George says, Norman Ross is absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Great actor. Honestly. He's a lovely fellow. I know he's well past now, but I believe he was a smashing fella. Even Lennon said that he was a smashing fella. He used to make them laugh.
Yeah.
Him and that Victor Spinetti, he was Victor Spinetti.
Yeah.
You're making the hard days, mate. Ah, come on, John. Anyway, Johan. Good evening, Frank, Anthony, and legends in the chat. Hope you're all well. We're now 89 seconds to midnight, according to the doomsday clock. Oh, thanks very much.
Well,
We are, actually.
well, it feels like that, Johan,
Yeah.
which is the scary thing, yeah.
Well, wait till we go on to about these people in a moment, what we're going to talk about. And George said, I'm thinking of another Scouser, Leonard Rossett.
Yeah.
Rising Jump. Oh, Miss Young. So funny. And you can get all those things on YouTube. Rise and Jump, Lixby, they're all on YouTube.
Oh, the old classic. Yeah.
And Simon says, during World War II, Donald Pleasance was shot down over France, captured and held a prisoner of war in a German camp. And he was also, that's what he said, it brought great memories. He did say great memories, because of the camaraderie and when he plays in there.
Yeah.
The Great Escape.
Absolutely. Brilliant actor.
And Simon said, I don't really know how many films I've done. And I don't look at this as a race that I necessarily want to win. Nor is it a race that I want to stop running. Go away. He's brilliant. I love this.
Even down to his later years with the kind of cameos, really. He did Halloween, the first one, didn't he?
Yeah, he was. He's evil. He's evil. That's what that's the only. That's what resonates with me. He's evil. He's evil. Because he had that a distinct voice, didn't he, Donald Pleasance?
Wonderful actors who take you with them, don't they? Because they're believable at whatever they do.
Yes.
So they follow them. You believe the story.
Love it. Because that was one of the most frighteningest films, that wasn't it? John Carpenter's Halloween.
It was, yeah.
Very frightening.
It
Just
was.
a serial killer, he went nuts.
Yeah.
And Bella Natalia says, Franco and Anthony, Have you ever watched the film A Mother's Love? It's a true story. Such a moving love of kindness in World War II. No, I can't say I have, Bella.
No,
I really can't say.
but that's exactly what we need now. You know, it's just in the heat of all of this, what's going on, you just think, just round the family up, be in one place, and if the button is pushed, then we're all gone.
Yes.
It's the
But
panic station.
Sorry, go on.
The panic stations that come out and are talking about nuclear bunkers now to hide, be safe. Well, that's not for us, and it's never been for us. You won't get an invite to hide out somewhere.
No,
It will be the very people that will hide out.
the people who caused us the wars.
Yes, and who couldn't
Start
change
more
it.
wars if they ever lived through the fallout. Well, they won't live through it anyway because the earth will be doomed. They don't realise what it's all about. Something that's why I've asked people to watch The Day After, made in 1983, and the power of a nuclear attack, which today, in the 21st century, the bombs are 1,000 times worse.
Yeah.
And there's so many nuclear war. It's not just one nuclear, it's not just one nuclear warhead coming in. There's multiple warheads on the one warhead, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
On the one missile. And the missiles today, especially what Russia has, are unstoppable. You can't shoot them down. They're ballistic. The hypersonic missiles, and they've got nothing to shoot them down. And these people are playing. I think Trump, he's gone nuts. And I think if someone told him to press the button, did you hear Lindsey Graham said today to him, not today, before he struck Iran, if you strike Iran, you'll become the new sheriff in town. They'll all fear you. It's just destroyed America and Trump, because no one will believe Trump any longer. No one trusts him. The Russians won't. The China, and there's Rubio asking China, get onto this, because Iran, they said, right, okay, we're stopping shipping coming through Hormuz, right? So, the straits, we're going to stop all. And Rubio's got on the phone or whatever to his counterparts in China. Now, they're forever, for months and months, but for years, they've been saying we want a war with China. And it's only been saying it like last week. China's next. And there's Rubio on the phone saying, can you put pressure on Iran to stop the, not to stop the shipping going through the Hormuz Straits. And they're begging China. It's just crazy. And I think if this carries on, I think Trump will just press a button, I think he's done. So, but that's for another time. Honestly, that's for another time. I'm sorry. And Bella says, it's about a lady, she lost her son in the war, but she saved the German young boy. There are some powerful stories about wars and whatever. And she carries on by saying, you are right, it's very scary times we're living in. It's more than scary, to be honest. Bella Italian. Beautiful Italy, that means. Bella Italian.
Never been as
Ringo
good.
Starr accidentally coined the phrase "a hard day's night"
Yeah.
after a long day of filming and performing, which then became the title of the film, album, and a hit single.
Yeah.
Cesar Simon.
Yeah. He was full
It's
of
like
fun.
someone was talking to George Harrison once, and he said, "Yeah, it's something about like a thing, whatever it was. Could have been a coat or what, it could have been anything." And he said, "Yeah, it looks grotty." And the
Yeah.
reporter went, "What do you mean grotty?" He says, "Grotesque." And that became in the English language,
Yeah. That's it.
grotty. It's in the
Yeah.
dictionary.
That was in the
George
film.
Harrison.
And that became in the language,
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Wouldn't
want
be
to put this up. I want to put this up. Liverpool contains a multitude of inhabited cellars, close and damp, with no drain nor any convenience. I visited a poor woman in distress. She had been confined only a day, and herself and infant were lying on straw in a vault with a clay floor, impervious to water. There was no light nor ventilation in it, and the air was dreadful. I had to walk on bricks across the floor to reach her bedside, as the floor itself was flooded with stagnant water. And that was Mr. Holmes, one of the commissioners, sent a report on the standard of housing in Liverpool in 1845. My grandmother told me they lived around Little Italy, and they had, where they lived, this like terraced house, but it was 5 stories high. They had a cellar, and they had what they called a garret. And they used to sit on the step. They're only young. She's only young. And this lady came, and she was talking on, the step with them. So three of them talk. And she said, "Can I go up?" Say like Catherine. Let's just say Catherine. "Can I go up and see Catherine in the garret? Because this lady had just had a baby. Just had a baby." Never forget. When your grandmother tells you little things. And anyway, she went up to see this lady, just had the baby. This mother, this newly mother, by the way, she was the first child. And when she got up there, she was asleep in bed, and the child was lying with her. But, and it was a massive but, there was a rat suckling her breast.
Oh my God.
And you know what? I said, "What did you do?" She said, "We couldn't do anything." The girl came down, she said, "You've got to come up and look at this." And when they went up, the rat was there, suckling, because she said, if we would have done something, the rat would have bit in,
Bit.
yeah, and we had to wait for it to go, jump off.
Jeez.
Do you know the way some things, resonate, you always think of them, over time. And when I talk about what we're going to talk about tonight, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Because there was one of the doctors with Dr. Duncan, who became the very first medical officer of health.
Yeah.
Excuse me. In the world, and Liverpool, I always said, you just sort out the health in Liverpool. You've got to be going on about that at the moment. Now, one of his lads, one of his colleagues, who had to go around and looking at certain things, in one of the courts, like where this lady lived that Mr. Holmes was talking about, he went in and he said, I was standing in the middle of the room, not focusing on any certain thing. He said there were white walls with the plaster peeling. And what you've got to think of as well is that these courts and cellars and whatever, the plaster covered horsehair, wood and horsehair.
Yeah.
And what fed on them? Now, don't forget, they were warm, very warm. And what fed on them were cockroaches. Because they like the warmth, they like the horsehair, including rats.
Yeah.
And he said I was standing there. I used to have the document, and I haven't got it anymore, unfortunately. So the walls, he said, I was standing there, not focusing on anything, but out the corner of my both eyes. Here's what he said. The walls were breathing. Like that, he said. And I had to go over to one side of the wall, poke my finger through it. So easily done, poke my finger. And out came a horde of cockroaches. They just came out and just spread everywhere, all over the walls, drop onto the floor. Because people think that the likes of courts were just, these nice little places where people grew up and, and they had a standpipe where they could get water. They were filthy. They were cockroach infested, rat infested. That's what people were living in.
Yeah.
That's what people were living in.
Yeah.
And when you look, now there's something there. Now they're the standpipes. There's children around and poor people, and they're getting drink from the standpipe. But you've got what do we call these people? A demon? Whatever. A spirit of death.
Death, yes.
And she's pumping the water.
Yes.
And yet she's filling the children's, the adults who look sick anyway, jugs or whatever they were filling us up with, the water. But why is she a spirit of death in that drawing?
Because the actual source of the water itself is contaminated, and it's more than likely to cause severe illness or death.
Okay. You're right. But as you know, before Charles Melly came about, when we're talking 1848, aren't we? And those wonderful things, little fountains so that people could have a drink. Now, the standpipes, these standpipes as well, were in the courts, and people used them to get washed. They used them for drinking facilities. But to bring that water through, they used lead pipe. And the lead pipe caused severe lead poisoning, that if you're vulnerable anyway, you die. It kills you. Lead poison. Because if you get lead poison, I remember some fella who worked where I lived, and he worked in, I don't know whether it was Ford's or Vauxhall's, and he got lead poison, and he was not half ill because of the lead where he worked. I don't know whether it was Ford's or because he worked with lead, and he got it. He got lead poison, and he was severely ill. Now, could you imagine going back to the mid or early part of the 19th century, where it was hand to mouth, and the infant mortality rate was below 17. I think it was 14. It was shocking, the mortality rate at the time. So if they drank this poisoned water, lead poisoned water, they just died. And that's why you've got that.
Horrific, Frank, horrific.
And the little headline there, it's got deaths dispensary. People think that they were doing good, but unfortunately, they weren't.
No.
Look at that. Now, that picture, she's only be a young woman.
Yeah.
With a child in her arms. A child, a newborn babe. And look, see the trough?
Yeah.
Now, I mentioned, didn't I, about Charles Melly. Now, Charles Melly seen all this, and he said, there's children drinking out of not only, the streets where you see water running down the road or whatever, they're drinking it. Now, imagine, Anthony, you're drinking water from the gutters. That's as simple as that, the gutters. You're talking the 19th century. In the 19th century, what you had for transport was horses. And we all know what horses do. I've seen them queuing up to go to the game. And you see it on the floor. And this is what these are drinking out of, because that's all they had in those days. Horses and carriages. And they just did the business in the street. And he's seen this, but he also seen a trough. Excuse me, this is really getting me down, this. Really is. Excuse me. I just get itchy right on the. It's terrible. So embarrassing. So anyway, the pain, Anyway, he looked at this and he said, they're drinking out of troughs, children and people. That horses drink out, dogs drink out, dogs go in it and urinate and foul. because they did. Beds, droppings, and they're drinking out of these troughs. So anyway, they calls in a fella, didn't he? He calls in a fella by the name of, yeah, look at this, mortality map of cholera. Because let's just take 1830. 1830. Liverpool was suffering from cholera, typhoid, dysentery, scarlet fever, everything. And there is the map showing you where all these places were. Right in the heart of the city, right in the heart of courts, these horrible dwellings, courts. And they had to do something about it. Now, what you've got there, you've got the ship of death. It's a great cartoon. And you see people on the shore crying for help. But it's not help, it's a death ship. And what that death ship represents, remember what that home said in 1845 about Liverpool?
Yeah.
Well, in 1845, you had the Irish potato famine in 1845. And at a later date, George Bernard Shaw, when he came about, obviously knew everything about the famine, whatever. And he said, how could there be a famine when the country was full of food? And it was. And they called it the potato famine. And everybody thought, oh yeah, well, you know, all the potato blight. I'll be going on about on a special programme I'm doing next week on the Irish. But I'll be talking about really the famine. I don't want to get into it now. I'm just giving you the little summary of when they came over. I'll be talking about George Bernard Shaw in more depth and other writers, by the way, when I do the Irish next week. But what you have is the death ship. And the Irish were coming over. And they were being put off. They really thought that they were being put off in 1847 in America. They found out to speak in English and whatever. But in America, oh, you know, you're still in England because they were trying to escape the English. He wanted to get away from the English. And when they stepped ashore, but the unfortunate thing, these people, I'll just finish on this one. These people were suffering from louse-borne disease. Louse-borne disease. Now, the louse-borne disease, it was because of starvation.
Yeah.
But I'll be going on to about that more when I do the Irish next week. Louse-borne disease. And then they went, we can't have any more coming off. So they quarantined ships. Even when they finally got over to America and they got to the Hudson River, both America and Canada was going, whoa, you're not coming here. And they quarantined them. The Irish, that's how bad it was. Well, let's get back to it. I'll be talking about that next week when I do the Irish. Now, this fellow is a fellow who tried to help. He tried to help. I'll be going on about him in a moment. Because there, what you have is one of the greatest women. Do you ever remember, Anthony, we got to know about a lady named Mother Teresa in India. Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
Now, Mother Teresa, I said at the time, this lady is a nun, she was, Mother Teresa, is a latter day Kitty Wilkinson. Because she did exactly what Kitty Wilkinson did. Kitty Wilkinson was one of the greatest of all philanthropists. So why didn't she get the recognition back in the day?
I think
back in the 19th century.
I think it falls on classism again.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It was not only the classes. I could give you an example, but you might think I'm going on to something different, which it would be. But a fine example is you don't give a toss about people, certain races of people. And this lady went out of her way to help everybody.
Yeah.
And why she wasn't recognized throughout the country was because, excuse me, good God, you know, even my eyelids get itchy, it's mad. Because this lady went out of her way to help working class people.
Yeah.
And as you know, she was incarcerated in a workhouse because her father had drowned on the way from Ireland over to get to America. The ship floundered, brought into Liverpool. Her mother had lost all her family because Kitty and her little brother, as you know, were sent up to a workhouse in Lancashire. It was more or less indentured servitude. She was 9 years of age. 9. She just lost a little babe in arms that her mother held on as they were floundering. The baby was washed away along with the husband. She and her little brother brought ashore in Liverpool. Sorry about this. This is terrible, this. And she was indentured into a workhouse. Her mother was institutionalized in some part of Liverpool. She just lost a whole family in one fell swoop. Kitty served 10 years. She came back looking for her mother. She found her mother. Kitty worked. She worked. And she worked until her hands couldn't work anymore. She opened a wash house. She went out to the leafy suburbs to wash their clothing. She came back into town where she washed the clothing of the poor, simply because this cholera, she said, was in the clothing. Not only the clothing on the backs, but the clothing on the beds. And she washed them. She washed everything with diluted lime to kill the germs. She said, this is what's causing it. It's not going to stop if you don't get washed. She brought in waifs and strays into her home. She looked after the poor, albeit she was poor herself. She married a man called Jean Dumont. He was a Frenchman. She had 2 children too. And unfortunately, he was swept away in a ship because he was a sailor. And he was swept away, drowned. So she was on her own. She was on her own with 2 children. It's not like today where, we can have very strong women who, single mums who can look after the kids. You're talking the mid-19th century. She had to look after 2 children. She was a widow. She worked. She actually got a job in an iron factory. A factory that, I don't know what you call it, but they made nuts and bolts and nails. And she used to have to bring them over to whatever, the nails, and red hot. No like heat gloves in those days. So her hands were damaged. And yet she still worked. She married a gardener named Wilkinson. Hence, Wilkinson, a name from the Mont to Wilkinson. And it was she who was washing all the clothing. And we'll go on after the break and another lovely lady.
Mount Pleasant is one of the most unassuming thoroughfares of Liverpool, yet it has a very interesting past. For example, there is a very small garden dedicated to one of Liverpool's greatest citizens, William Roscoe, who was born right here in Mount Pleasant in an inn run by his parents. Roscoe Gardens. Lots and lots of people just walk past it every single day and don't take a blind bit of notice. But follow me, I'll take you in. The man who brought the country's first botanical gardens to Liverpool in 1801. However, this humanitarian's greatest achievement was when he led a group of Liverpool abolitionists who campaigned tirelessly against the slave trade. Roscoe's abolitionists finally won the fight when it was abolished in 1807. Incidentally, the designer of this wonderful memorial was also a Liverpool great, the town surveyor and architect John Foster Jr. And incidentally, he also lived on Mount Pleasant. So if you want to see his house, follow me. This is where he lived. Foster was responsible for designing the likes of St Luke's Church, locally known as the Bombed Out Church, the Grades 1 listed oratory next to the Anglican Cathedral, and of course St Andrew's in Rodney Street, with now the famous Mackenzie's Pyramid Tomb. I've just remembered what I've passed walking up Mount Pleasant. You can't miss out on this. Come on. This is what I forgot to tell you. This wonderful dwelling is the oldest Georgian building in Liverpool, built in 1767. It's just a magnificent example of Georgian architecture at its best. Right next door, when John Lennon was born, just up the road in Oxford Street, he was registered here like so many of Liverpool's other citizens were, famous or not so famous. You most probably were registered here yourselves. And next door again, remember this building? This was Liverpool's own dolls' hospital. Yeah, Liverpool has its own hospital for the sick dolls, a unique institution indeed. And people did actually bring their broken dolls here. You could have been one of them, bringing your poorly sick doll. Ah, bless. This striking building is the Wellington Rooms. It was adopted by the Irish community, and later it became affectionately known as the Irish Centre for many, many years. It was built in 1816 in honour of the Iron Duke himself, Wellington, for his greatest victory in battle at Waterloo over his greatest adversary, Napoleon, the year previous in 1815. I'd love to take you in, but unfortunately, and it breaks my heart this, it's fell into disrepair in the inside. The whole of the ceiling has collapsed.
I've been looking for me, I just couldn't find them. Can't find them anyway. My reading glasses. Oh,
Such
just
a
can't find them.
building, the Irish Centre.
Do you know what? I graduated no less than 4 times, 5 times. Always went in there. The Irish Centre. For a drink.
Yeah.
Afterwards. And I was built by a fella named Atkins in 1816 to commemorate the victory over Napoleon at Waterloo.
Yeah.
And it was called, the Wellington Rooms. Then it became the Irish Centre. It became a focal point for the Irish community.
Yeah. That's
the
how I remember it. And yeah. So is there anyone working on it now? Or is it just
having a clue?
No.
It's just left. It's just left. I have my reasons, but my Liam Mullen. Evening, gentlemen. Evening, Liam.
Evening, Liam.
Good to see you, fella. Lee Argent, Kensington here. Hey, to my scouts. Hello, Lee. Mine. I didn't know you were in. And George says, Frank, many a great night did I have in the Irish Centre. Cheap booze, good food, and great entertainment.
Yeah.
I remember Sierra Gardens, Sierra Crescent having a reunion there. That was great. Meeting old neighbours and
Yeah.
it was so lovely.
Oh.
My old girl, my Auntie Mary, my Auntie Leah. Just when I think. Lovely Myra. Hi everyone. Hiya Myra.
Hiya,
Great
Myra.
you with us. Honestly. So bloody sad. So sad. But anyway, so we've got Kitty.
Yeah.
The great Kitty Wilkinson. And there she is.
Immortalised in stained glass.
Stained glass in the women's window. The noble ladies' window. And there was just so many noble ladies of Liverpool. And she was one of them.
Yes.
Because what that woman did, going into diseased people's areas, bringing in waifs and strays, washing their clothes so they could keep away from the disease of cholera, typhoid, dysentery. She went up to the workhouse, Brownlow workhouse, and there's a couple of other workhouses as well. And she washed the walls down with lime. That's what kind of a person she was. But as I said, she went to the leafy suburbs where she charged people that could afford to have their clothing washed. And went back but she didn't charge the poor people. She didn't charge them. She tried to open a school, which she did open a school to teach children, because kids were so, there was no education for kids until 1870 with the Forster Act. But kids didn't want to go to school in 1870 with the Forster Act. So the Mandela Act of 1880 forced the kids to go to school, or the parents could get into trouble. So kids didn't know when Kitty was going. No education. And she opened a school. And she was teaching the kids. Teaching. The unfortunate thing is that's a closed down, simply because the children were terrified of the mother, Kitty's mother, because the lady from suffering 1794, the loss of her husband and child, the baby in arms, and a daughter, Kitty, and a brother. She was left on her own for years, until Kitty came back looking for her. Excuse me. And she was mentally gone, unfortunately. So whatever she was getting up to in the class, just sitting there. But she frightened the kids. So no one was sending the kids to the school. And it just closed down. She couldn't do anything. But nevertheless, she carried on working. To this wonderful lady, Kitty Wilkinson, this Irish lady, who not only, did she love Liverpool, but she loved every human being.
Yeah.
Every human being. And that famous quote, very famous quote, if you feel pain, you're alive. If you feel other people's pain, you're a human being. That, I dedicate that to that lady.
Yeah. Yeah, without doubt, Frank. Yeah.
And I always remember Frankie Connor. And he said to me, I want you to do, I said, I can't sing. He said, I want you to make a record. Don't behave yourself. You're going to do it. So anyway, you know the story. And who could ever refuse Billy Kingsley?
No one.
No one. So anyway, up we traipsed to Billy and a studio. And I did a song. It's so sad, It's so sad that I'm not saying Kitty wasn't rightfully recognised. She got a teapot or something and a couple of cups off the council. But what we have today are laundrettes.
Yeah.
Kitty opened the very first washout in the world. And that's where today laundrettes stem from, the washhouses. And she died. The great lady died. And a headstone is still in St. James's Cemetery because they dug up all the stuff. When I say stuff, I mean, you know, the graves, or they had to intern them somewhere else. In St. James's Cemetery, put all the headstones around the walls. And when you go in there, you know, into the cemetery itself, you can actually see it. All these headstones everywhere, all against the wall. And there was only a few that remained. Kitty's the only one remaining.
Wow.
That's interred there.
That's such a poignant sight to walk through the tunnel there at St. James's Cemetery and see the tombstones lining the tunnel. It's wow.
Well, by Kitty's grave itself, against the wall just facing it, you could read names, and they were all of kids, young kids, school children, and a couple of teachers who died of cholera and were buried there.
Oh.
The actual cemetery opens in 1836, and it lasted a full 100 years with 52,000 people being interred there. 52,000. Incredible. And this lady is also on the Noble Women's window at the Anglican Cathedral. And her name is Agnes Jones. One thing I don't know whether I mentioned her about Kitty. Kitty was an Irish girl, as I said.
Yeah.
An Irish girl. And she dedicated her life to the sick and infirm of Liverpool people.
Yeah.
This lady came here 1860 from Cambridge, but she was sent for. She was sent for by William Ratcliffe.
Yeah.
This lady became the very first. He said to her, listen, I'll pay you. I'll give you the wage. I think she would have worked for nothing anyway. So she got a wage. She became the very first paid nurse in the entire world. The whole of the nursing profession and system as it is today came from Agnes Jones. The whole of it. The nursing profession. The only nurse that ever gets mentioned in history is Florence Nightingale and her angels.
Yeah.
Which, you know, we can't take anything away from the great Florence.
No. But Florence looked at Agnes with such respect and such awe to see what she was doing.
Yep.
And what she did.
And what she did in a very short period that she was in Liverpool.
Yeah.
She broke down the barriers of prejudice. She broke down the barriers of disease to go and nurse the sick she went up to workhouses. Whereas, you know, the only time that you ever seen freedom outside a workhouse was when you came out feet first, if you get me meaning. It was shocking.
Yeah.
And she, like Kitty, went in and scrubbed the walls with lime. She went into diseased areas. This lady looked after the sick. She looked after the sick. Massive Irish connection because, albeit that she was born in Cambridge, her parents were Irish.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they went back to Ireland. And Kitty remained here. And she remained here. She was a lovely looking lady, by the way.
Yeah.
Very pretty lady. Sorry, go on.
That portrait says a lot about her characters, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Very,
yeah.
very aristocratic looking.
She did look very aristocratic indeed. And she could have easily have not done anything, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
She didn't have to become what she became.
No. Stayed with
She
the
could have
Cambridge.
kept herself going.
Yeah. She could have stayed with the Cambridge set. Wrote a book, whatever, you know, but I think, if I remember right, her passion for giving and for care, rather like Kitty, comes from her childhood as well, where she always wanted to help others, you know.
That's what. And how many people like today just want to help?
Yeah.
They just want to help.
Yeah.
And look, I didn't want to. I'll just say this briefly because it's for tomorrow night. The people who are helping today are in the Middle East, knowing that I'm not saying any day, I'm saying any second, they could be taken out. And they're actual medics, doctors, nurses.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet, they still help. They're still there.
Yeah.
This lady, you know, you might think, oh, there's nothing, you know, where bullets are flying today. But disease, uncontrollable disease that there was no cure for.
Yeah, absolutely.
He did the best. Go on.
Just absolutely right, Frank. The parallel is you know, it's the same. Wasn't death by bombs or bullets, but it was pretty much certain death for anyone who works in those environments, because there was not the cure.
Yeah.
Sorry, Frank.
No, it's again, you know, people, I'm saying our people, and they say, you know, I wouldn't like to go into Gaza today. Because, as I said, it's not every day you're risking your life. It's every second. That's how bad it is. Every second. But this was the same back in the day. People going in. She knew that she was going to die. because she became ill herself. She became ill herself, looking after the poor people that needed help. And eventually she died, 1864. And she wasn't buried here. She wasn't buried here. She was buried in Ireland.
Yeah.
She was brought back to Ireland, and that's where she was interred. Because, as I mentioned before, their parents went back to Ireland.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these are great ladies of Liverpool.
Yeah.
Yet they weren't born and bred in Liverpool. Yet they gave their lives to the people of Liverpool, to the poor people of Liverpool.
Yeah.
That's the big difference.
And both of them made a tremendous difference to the world and how we would therefore treat the poor and the sick. That's
yes.
Lovely.
And there she is in the noble lady's window.
Yeah.
In the Anglican Cathedral. There she is. And we talk about. Have you noticed the dove there, the dove of peace?
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
I just do, it's a beautiful portrait of this great lady. Beautiful. This wonderful lady who gave so much, including her life, like the great Kitty Wilkinson. Both of them. You can't split for what they did.
No. We take for granted what they gave, because, like you said before, we can walk into a laundrette or the like. We can walk into out of hours GP doctors, get the attention we need. But when in the days when she was at the workhouse, where that was the infirmary was like the end of the line, wasn't it? It was
It was the end of the line. Because, as I said, the only time you ever thought of freedom in a workhouse was feet first. Feet first. He came out dead. And as you know, the cemeteries were being full up. So they said, we can't afford to bury these people because they're not paying to be buried.
No.
Families pay to be buried in the churchyard. So they decided to consecrate some land and make it into a cemetery. And they did up in Everton Road, the corner of West Derby Road and Everton Road. And that cemetery, it's Grant Gardens today. That cemetery became the very first public cemetery ever. And it was known as the necropolis, which is Greek for the city of the dead. The city of dead.
Wow.
The only necropolis I can see today, which I've actually been to, was in Venice, Venezia, in Italy. The necropolis. And so when that became the cemetery, people were dying. And more people, they said, well, there's more people dying. We've got to open up, consecrate more ground. So they did. And the world took notice of what they were doing, consecrating grounds and burying people, giving them a decent burial and Christian burial, because we're a Christian country. And they said, well, we can't name it the necropolis because, you know, we said, where's he getting buried? Oh, in the necropolis, or she's getting buried, oh, in the necropolis. What one? So they started to name the cemeteries.
Yeah.
And there was a knock-on effect throughout the world by naming cemeteries, not just the one name.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. And there's the wash houses. The wash houses. I remember my mum and my auntie Mary, my auntie Leah going over to the wash house with a big bungle on the head. Big bungalow washing on there.
Wow. But
it became sorry.
It became a social hub, didn't it, in the days of
meeting place. And they used to have a nursery in the wash house by Jerry Gardens where I grew up. And I went in there and they had a big rocking horse. Oh, I used to love going on the rocking horse.
Wow. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the nurse who was looking after us, you know, she said, all right, you better behave yourself. I was only 19 at the time. But, you know, little kids. I love this fella.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
There it is. The necropolis. It's incredible.
City. He is incredible. Thanks, Jason. Wow.
George Seth says, may I put forward your consideration for another great lady who was a social activist, abolitionist, the great Irish woman, Mary Ann McCracken, sister to Henry Joy McCracken of the United Ireland. Yeah, I'll do it. Mary Seacole, yes, she was a black lady, yeah. A nurse who was with Florence Nightingale. That's right, Mary Seacole is a name in this city, of course. Of course, Lee. Oh, Bella Italia. Notte Fantastica, Sogni d'Oro, Franco, Anthony, and everybody. Thank you so much for that wonderful comment there, Bella Italia.
Bella?
Oh, she's going. Oh, he's going. Notte Fantastica. Been a fantastic night, she said. You know, show. Thank you. Please join us again. I'll be talking about the Italians coming over, my lot. My lot. As I said, I was talking to some Italians today. That's incredible. The French, oh, Dad, what are you like? I said, he's from Italy. He supports Inter. Oh. I just got to take this down a minute. Now there's Grant Gardens. There's Grant Gardens as we see today. There it was, as it was,
Yeah.
with the cemetery in the background. Do you know what you see? What you see in the background there, do you see that? It's looks like it. Looks like a big turret, doesn't it? In the background, right at the background.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the water tower there.
Okay.
It's brilliant, you know. I tried to get in there once. They said, "Oh no, it's still working." And you've got the water tower there. Now think about where it is.
Yeah.
And you've got the reservoir, brick reservoir, in Hyde Park Street. So they're here like this. This is what Thomas Duncan designed. Because William Duncan said, you know, the first, there it is, there, look.
Thanks, Jace.
he's wonderful, isn't he? And he said, listen, he said, we've got to, you know, sort out the sewage. We've got to, you know, to alleviate this horrible diseases. You know, there's Kitty and there's Agnes doing their work. And so they built that. They built the water tower there, which is in Everton. Now, I'm trying my best to demonstrate, but you can't, by the way. I'm useless. I can't, yeah, let's see. I've got these glasses here. I'll just try and demonstrate. Right, so there's the things, right?
Yeah.
The water tower and the reservoir. And they're on high ground. They're on high ground. And what you've got below it is the city centre. So all the water that was pumped from here over to Hyde Park Street, and Hyde Park Street let it go, and this let it go into the sewage. Now what you had Duncan, William Duncan said to this fella named James Newland, he said, listen, he said, I want you to go into the sewers, see what you can do, because they're just rectangles, they're just like that. So any deposits that are there are just there. He said, I need deposits, I need water to go down and push them away. And he went, okay. And what he did when he went down, he built with brick a shape like that, but it was on a level like that. Whereas if a deposit went there, right, so a deposit went there, the water came down and flushed the deposit away. And that's how they were alleviating it. Great piece of engineering. An unbelievable piece of engineering.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. That's what they did. Isn't that a brilliant thing, though? A great design, Thomas Duncan.
Oh, absolutely.
Look at it.
Absolutely.
Water tower.
Yeah. Again, it looks Roman, doesn't it?
Yeah. I just love the way people put their whole heart and soul into something. Not like today. I'm not being funny about today. They're just throwing buildings up, for example.
Yeah.
They just throw buildings up. That won't last. I know they won't last.
No.
And
Not designed to last, and there's no real care behind that. Whereas they're like masterpieces, mini masterpieces. And you've talked through town, some of the buildings were phenomenal when they were built. And here we are now, in the middle of glass houses.
Well, that's it, we're all in bloody glass houses. And the unfortunate thing with glass houses, we throw stones at glass houses. And that's what's going on today. Bullies, egos, everything. I just live in despair, I'm being honest. You do. I do. All our chapters. And look at that beautiful Italian by two lovely people, Bella Italia and Toscana. Grazie di oggi ho fatto la pizza. Pizza. Così quando vengano gli amici passiamo la sera con la pizza e un bicchiere di vino. A pizza and what she's saying is, how about a glass of wine, bicchiere di vino, this evening, and a glass of wine. It'd have to be Russell. Bicchiere di Russell.
Beautiful.
Russell for me.
We learned so much from your show.
I all the passion, our friends and all the passion, she said. She said, she could be sitting there eating a pizza, as she's saying, with her friends, with old friends here, having a glass of wine.
Beautiful. Toscana, that's beautiful.
It is, isn't it?
Yes.
It is. And Lee Argent, I live right by the water tower.
Oh.
I can't get over it, actually. The wash houses.
Yeah. Wow.
Big tubs. But they're the first wash houses, by the way.
Yeah.
What Kitty opened. And it's got, look, notice to washers. The corporation will not be responsible for the loss of clothes or other articles belonging to washers. You can't make that up, can you?
You can't.
Washers. Look at that.
Oh.
I just love it, and the way Jason just connects with what we're doing.
Well, it just enhances everything. Jason's input is just phenomenal.
Incredible. But there's another lady I wanted to mention who had nothing at all to do with wash houses or anything. What she concentrated on was the emancipation of women. And she lived in Rodney Street. And her name was Anne Jemima Clough. Now, Anne Jemima Clough, her brother was one of these great poets in the same vein as the likes of William Blake, Keats, Coleridge, Browning, all these wonderful people are at the club. And they lived in Rodney Street, brother and sister. And she was always going on about the education of women. Love this fella. There she is, Anklo.
Wow.
And so she just wanted the best for women. The best. Could you imagine the likes of Anne and the likes of Agnes Jones and Kitty Wilkinson? And she's wanting the best. Kitty Wilkinson, I must add, could read and write, you know. That's why she opens a school to learn kids to read and write. You know, the likes of Agnes Jones didn't come from a poor background, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yet she dedicated. People have dedications in their lives. And I love these women. I love them. I really do.
Yeah.
And the likes of Anne Clough, she says, why are women put on the back burner? Why are women put on the back burner? And what she fought for, and she got Newell College, Cambridge, for women in the 1880s. She got it. That's where the women then, they all congregated at Newell College, Cambridge University. She did it because it was male dominated.
Yeah.
I always mention Mary Wollstonecraft.
Yeah.
The mother of the wonderful Mary Shelley. And she was the same.
Yeah.
She was the same. But when you look at the likes of Kitty and the likes of Agnes, totally different from Mary Wollstonecraft, the first suffrage, in all honesty. She wrote a book called The Rights of Women. The Rights of Women. And, you know, so these two ladies were totally different, you know, talking about Kitty Wilkinson and Agnes Jones were from, you know, totally different from what Wollstonecraft and Clough. But they dedicated themselves to women.
Yeah.
Like the suffrage movement.
Yeah.
Like Mary Bamber, who went around in 1911 giving soup and tea and bread to the strikers who had nothing when they went on general strike. And a daughter, 12-year-old daughter, Bessie Braddock.
Yeah.
So the likes of these people who dedicated their lives to achieve something, and yet they're forgotten, but not forgotten by us. Not forgotten by us.
Yeah. Yeah. It's.
And Simon says, only the dead have seen the end. Yeah, great this. Only the dead have seen the end of war. The price good men pay for indifference to public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. And that was written by Plato in ancient Greece. Ancient Greece wasn't written yesterday. And look how that applies to today. Only the dead have seen the end of war, because wars are continuing. I was listening to someone, and since 17, you're going to not believe this. Since 1776 and the American War of Independence from this country, which I didn't blame them, to be honest, America has only had 6 years from 1776 not to be involved in wars. 6 years. That's all. Can anybody fathom that? They started wars, they got involved in wars, and they're still doing it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
They go after what you call regime change. So if you don't comply to the regime change, they go in and bomb you. Simple as that. What right have they got? That's all for tomorrow. And Simon says, Franco Anthony, another great show as our world sits on the precipice. We can only pray that common sense prevails. Look forward to tomorrow's show. Thank you, Simon. Logic as usual.
Yeah.
All logic. And late to Simon. Well spoken, Plato. But as I said, I give that wonderful Tolstoy quote to it's terrible, you know. To the lovely, I give it to the both of them, to both Kitty Wilkinson and Agnes Jones.
Yeah.
If you feel pain, you're alive. If you feel other people's pain, you're a human being. Look at the pain they felt. That's the way I look at it. And they felt that pain of the poor, the needy, the vulnerable, the sick. And they felt their pain and went in to do something. I'm going to do, if you don't mind, Anthony, I'm going to combine two history things and Liverpool. Two communities. And those two communities, why I'm doing these two is because, you know, there's other communities, obviously. But why these two is I come from one and you come from the other. And that's the Irish and the Italian.
Yeah.
If you don't mind doing that.
And
what I want to mention as well, if you want to know more about Kitty Wilkinson and Agnes Jones, what should people do, Anthony?
Well, there's a dear friend of Frank and I's who's sadly lost, called Michael Kelly, who's an author with a keen heart for history, and he actually brought a book, the first that I know about Kitty's life. Michael Kelly, if you Google him, I can tell you now, the only way you get this particular book is on eBay. And Mike will be absolutely sickened because it goes for stupid money, which he never made and he won't now. The other book, which is a wonderful book, called Mothers of the City, again by our dear friend Michael Kelly. And each chapter is made of a remarkable lady. Frank has covered most of these ladies. Some I hadn't heard, and some, like we said before, gloriously they should be everywhere. But I'm sure we will dip in again to these remarkable people, and I look forward to finding out some more.
We will. We will. Because, as I said, I remember ages and ages, a couple of years ago, well, 5 years ago it was, doing a show, and Jason was there, and I mentioned about Queen Carlyle.
Yeah.
And when no one has ever heard of it. So I said to them, well, do you know Boudicca? They went, who's she? Boudicca. I said, Boudicca. Oh, yeah, no, Boudicca. That's how you pronounce Boudicca, Boudicca. But they never heard of Queen Carlyle. And yet, Queen Carlyle was far better than Boudicca. So it's like ladies. That they never heard of. But I try to bring them up. I try to go, yeah, look, this is a lady. Who's she? And the shame is, say like a Liverpool lady, for example. You know, we've mentioned Kitty, we've mentioned the lovely Agnes as well. And when I mention Mary Bamber, who's she? What did she do? See what I mean?
Yeah, no, but it's like I always say to you, it's what you do, by what you do, by mentioning these extraordinary women, people in history, is you're sowing seeds, so people hopefully, rightfully will say, I'll check that out. We live in an age now where it's a mobile phone will get you any bit of information you want. So.
Do you know when we do the Italians and when we do the Irish, I'm talking about the communities.
Yeah.
You know, and we've got to know about the Italians. We've got to know about the Irish because they live side by side. The migrants came in being side by side, but we'll also talk about the Italians and the Irish who stayed here, because they couldn't get a ship over to America. Like my family, half of my family, like my mother's side here, they were stranded here. Because the other half got to New York because there was 6-month waiting list for, passenger ship, not passenger ships, they paid a passage. And so anyway, but they got a job. They got work.
They got work,
and one of them brought over a barrel organ. He used to go around the streets with a barrel organ, earning money. And another one became a boxer. And he became famous around, well, he was the only British boxer ever to go over to Madison Square Garden, and he was known as the Liverpool Wop. And he had 7 fights, won 6 and drawn 1. And he actually beat the world champion, but it wasn't a championship fight. And he beat the world champion. Anyway, you know, that's a different story. But it's things like that.
That's the heritage.
It's the heritage.
You've got, and we're all living through that. We're descendants of that. I mean,
Yeah.
for me personally, my selfish goal growing up has always been music.
Yes.
And what you describe with the Italians and with the Irish song and music.
But we'll be talking about all that. We'll be talking about the culture that they brought into Liverpool. That's what we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about cuisine. We'll be talking about music. We'll be talking about everything. Colour. Colour.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to love it. And all these wonderful people. Bella, I tell you, Franco and Anthony, I was going to go to my friends, but I had to listen to the rest of your history program. It's just so fascinating. How wonderful your knowledge of history is. Fantastic. That's lovely, beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bella.
Thank you. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
They're all lovely on there. Everyone. You've only got to mention someone, and the other fella, Simon, will come up with a quote.
Yeah.
He'll come up with a quote. I love it. I just. And Myra says, Lee, join us tomorrow if it's possible. And Lee replies, okay, will do. Curious, is that a picture of you, Myra? Yes, it is. She's one of our influencers. Is our Myra. You know the score, mister. I'll be in touch when we're doing this particular history show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I'll do? I don't know whether I'm doing anything on Thursday. I don't know whether I've said I don't know, do you know? But I hope to do it Thursday, the Italians and the Irish, if you don't mind. You know, there'll be others thrown in the mix. But if you're going to listen, people, the people that went through here are unbelievable. Some of the people, you know of, you go, wow, go away. Liverpool, you kidding? No, we're not kidding. We went over, both Irish.
Yeah.
And Italian. And hopefully it'll be on Thursday, Anthony, if you're up for it.
I'm well up for it, Frank.
Excellent stuff.
Whatever suits you.
And listen, people, please, you know, Michael Kelly. We love Michael, didn't we?
Yes.
One of the most, I've always said about this fella here, Anthony, being one of the most gentlest, loving people I know of. Michael Kelly was his mirror image. And we were sick with him. Give you an idea of Michael. There was going to be a statue of Kitty Wilkinson. And, you know, you have people, this boils me. Boils me, this. And I got to know a lad, a Liverpool lad, brilliant sculptor, an incredible sculptor. Anthony, he showed me his work. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And he put in to do this statue. And he came, like, you know, he got right to the final of the last three. And I'd seen him as he was going in. You know, it was going to be announced who won it. And when he showed me what he was going to do, oh, blew my mind. And what you're seeing, I've got to do this. I'm sorry. I've got to show you it. What I'm talking about. Honestly, you'll understand. You'll understand. Now, do you see that face?
Yeah.
The way that lady is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Kitty.
Dear Kitty.
He showed me the maquette and I went, oh, blew me. He has a face. He has a face. And what she was doing, she was just standing like that. But she had two children. And one was a little girl and she's pulling it, like, you know, a dress aside. And she's looking like that. A little child. That Kitty's protecting from the likes of disease. And on the other side of her dress, and it was brilliant the way it was. He has a little stool, and you see a foot on it, you know, like kneeling on it, a little foot with hobnail boots. And it was a little boy, and he's peeping around the dress and looking like that. Peeping around.
Oh.
And I went, great. He went to, never won it. And what won it was what you see in St. George's Hall today, which I think is an absolute disgrace. And why it was picked and not Martin Foot's maquette to sculpt it was because Martin, you know, forgetting about him being a Scouser and, you know, doing terrific work, going over to Italy to do it. He lives there. He invited me over. He said, come and see me. And they picked this fella, whoever it was, I don't want to know. Because he wasn't a Scouser, by the way. No. He was from down south. And because he went to the London School of Art. That's why he was picked. And I don't want to name the council, but I know who she is. She said, oh, we love it. Why the fuck did you pick? Anyway, that was it. And Michael walked out when that was unveiled.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said, Michael, what have they done? What have they done? He was disgusted.
He was.
There's a man who knows everything about Kitty Wilkinson, wrote about everything. Why couldn't you have that image? Do you know what that statue reminds me of? And I said it at the time. Old Mother Riley.
Caricature.
You know, like rolling up her sleeves. What the fuck's that was all about? Where has she protected children? It's really, I didn't want to get into that because it's really
well, I think I'm glad you did, because it underlines that Michael's passion for what he did. And as you know, it's because you got the same thing. And for him to write the book, do the research, go to Ireland, see the family, spend time with the ancestors, and then come back and see what some Formica statue. It's not respectful.
I know. It is Formica statue. And Simon says, I don't go out of my way to be outrageous. I just go out of my way to look at things. Dave Bauer. Oh yeah, look. Simon's l'Italia non so che continua a tornare per il resto della tua vita. So you see, he's talking now to L'Italia. And Simon, ciao my friends, look forward to watching your podcast on the Irish Italians and the true story of more Hicks. I will tell you that, honestly. Thank you, Frank Anthony, on another wonderful night.
Thank you.
Hello, Frank. It's Anfield. What's wrong? Don't say nothing, mate. Wanted to let you. He hasn't abandoned the brotherhood, but he has had to go to work abroad. Go away. Well, that's good.
Wow.
That's what we were worried, you know.
We were talking yesterday, weren't we?
Yeah, yesterday. I was having a conversation with Anthony. Always have a conversation, and I said, "We haven't heard from Raw. We haven't heard from him. I hope there's nothing wrong or I've made." That's brilliant. Thank you. Get hold of him and tell him, that you told us.
We're thinking of him.
Look, he says as well, the brother. He hopes you're all well, and he will be back on the pod once he returns, late July. Cheers, Frank.
Fab. Wonderful.
Great. Get in touch with him and tell him that Anthony and myself honestly, we're relieved. But it's a good relief. It's a happy relief. Because we don't like anyone being ill or anything. Tell him, make sure, I'm not telling you to make sure, I know that you will tell him. Thank you so much, Rose, brother. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Myra says to Lee, are you doubting Thomas? They are. Look, Christopher as well, Raw. Send our best wishes to Raw. See what I mean? We care.
Yeah.
We're human beings. We feel other people's pain besides our own pain.
Yeah.
And tell them a bird upon our chest.
You're wearing the shirt.
That scarf or about. And on that wonderful note of happiness, and I'm just made up. You know what you've said there, or made up what Christopher said. They all say it, believe you me. Raw, send them our best. And we'll see him at the end of July. And he better not come back with a big tan if I ever go. Okay. See you soon. Anthony.
Yeah.
You know the score.
Thanks, Frank. No, thank you. It's been a great night.
And the most important, and if you ever want to look at this wonderful international artist's work, there he is. You'll find him on Andy Brown Art. Search Facebook, Instagram, or Google for Anthony Brown Artist. And we have to thank Jason, because without Jason,
no show.
You know the score, don't you? You know the score. you know, disco. And it wouldn't be a bloody show. But I've got to thank our wonderful Gap Painting Services for sponsoring the Frank Carlyle show. And honest to God, please, please, please don't struggle. Look at the kip of me, falling backwards, breaking my neck, trying to paint a scene many years ago. And look, finished. Get these in, don't struggle, please. And if you're an NHS worker, special discount. If you're an elderly person, special discount. Get them in, don't struggle. Wonderful people. Wonderful. And they sponsor the Frank Carlyle show. Every pot. And look at that. Those brother. Thanks, guys. Christopher, I'll pass it on. He sends apologies, but he doesn't have connection on where he is. He's not MI6, is he? He's not in North Korea, is he? Spying on Kim Jong-un. No, he's not. You know, he's with us. He's with us on all the issues. He's with us. Just as long as he's safe, that's all. Just as long as the lad's safe, the Anfield Road. And on that wonderful note, but the most important people, Anthony, as you know, are who?
Are our chatters.
Our chatters. Because without the chatters, nothing. Zilch. No show.
Thank you, guys.
Is my wig okay?
Yeah.
I remember going into the town hall. Right, so they had these people and these old ladies. And I was windy and I came in and the air was free flowing there and I went like that. And I went, is my wig straight? And the salon looked at me, she went, it's over. And I went, she said, that's perfect. That's perfect. And that's true. What can I say? And on that bad note, Toscana. Grazie for another great evening. Who needs the TV? Well done, Raw. Hope it goes well for you.
Oh, yeah.
We all want it. We all.
Yeah.
Toscana, thank you. Caro mia,
Yeah.
thank you. Mille grazie for that. Honestly, thank you. I'm going to leave that wonderful comments up about our Raw.
Yeah.
And from our lovely Cara Mia Toscana. And I'll see you there. You know, if you want to join me tomorrow, by all means join me, because I did say that I'll be doing a...
I will definitely be listening.
Well, yeah, it's mad, you know, what's going on in the world today. And I'll be going right into it, because anything could go in 24 hours, as you know. And I want to give... Myra Page said, not Myra Page, I'm sorry. Myra said, she said, do you know what? She said, Seymour Hayes said that he's not going to wait 2 weeks, it's going to happen over the, I'm still itchy, you know, over the weekend. Seymour H is a great investigative reporter, and he was right, and Myra was right, and she was so right to tell him. And on that note, I'll see you all tomorrow, well, some of you at least, hopefully. Good night, people. Good night, Anthony. Good night.
Good night, Frank. Good night, all. Thank you.